Hey everybody, today is a full review of Andy Tauer's Nexin, which I'm reviewing from a sample I purchased from Les Senteurs in London. They have sold out of the full bottle so that you can only get a sample now. If you want to kind of see what it smells like, grab yourself a sample before they go if you're interested, but you can no longer buy a bottle. I believe pretty much all of them have sold out. Andy Tauer's official website have also sold out. He made a limited edition of 1,000 bottles. They sold out in a few days. And so I'll read you a little bit about the notes that are presented and kind of my feelings on the fragrance altogether. So when I go to Les Senteurs' website and read a little bit about the note listing, they give kind of a little bit more of a detail than Andy Tauer's website, interestingly. So they write, natural essential oils include lemon, geranium and bergamot, rose, vetiver and oak moss. And then they write, other notes include musk, ambergris, tonka, iris root, lemon blossom, airy woody notes, cedar and sandalwood. So I'm going to spray it on paper for this, but I've been wearing it on my skin obviously for the review. What I get from this is a very clean, uplifting, rounded, soft opening, which is my favourite part of the fragrance. I think the lemon is subtle, but it's kind of adds this kind of bright, fresh quality without being overly citrusy in a way. But it's clean. I get these very... My first thought when I smelled this was I wonder if there's maybe something like linden blossom or petitgrain or neroli, these kind of very clean, soapy-like florals. That was my initial impression before I even read the note list, but none of those are in there. So, but that's the impression you get. You get this very rounded, soft, kind of lemony, but not too citrusy, if that makes sense. Lemony, fresh, and this kind of soft, musky, floral, clean quality that smells a little bit soapy, quite clean, bright, uplifting. I think the bottle is the perfect image because the bottle is completely white from head to toe. It's all white, and this smells just like that. It smells clean, crisp. Almost one of the things that I wrote in my kind of notes on this was at certain points it reminded me of like clean, crisp towels that are just freshly out of the washing machine that had some nice kind of, you know, beautiful smelling fabric softener on. And they have that lovely kind of smell, and they've been hanging on a spring day outside, and you've just brought them in and they're still kind of fresh and airy and warm, and they've got this kind of nice cotton smell. You get that kind of vibe, but again, also a little bit soapy as well. So when I look at my notes here, I've written very smooth, clean opening, a sense of smooth lemon and clean florals, quite musky, light and airy. I wrote in my notes that this kind of reminds me of... I think this would fit in something like the Acqua di Parma line in the kind of more cleaner range. I can imagine this fitting right into something like an Acqua di Parma for a kind of reference point. On my notes I mentioned that it seems to sit relatively close to my skin, although I could get wafts of it around my neck as I moved around, but in terms of like smelling my hand, I kind of like had to be here to smell it. It didn't feel like it lifted off that much on my skin personally. As it starts to dry down, I did notice a lot of what they're calling kind of light, airy, woody musks. I'm presuming is something along the lines of Isoe Super. You get that kind of woody, musky, molecule, synthetic feeling from this in the kind of mid to dry down. Ambergris is listed on the note list. I have no idea whether Andy Tauer uses real ambergris tincture or a synthetic ambergris accord or synthetic ambergris note. I don't know. The kind of mid to base does smell a little bit more synthetic to my nose, so, you know, but it doesn't mean that there isn't some percentage of real ambergris. It's very ambiguous, so to speak, in terms of brands can write ambergris and just not tell you whether it's real or not, and you just have no idea. So with this, I don't know. I have no idea. But like I say, there is a obvious kind of synthetic feeling to the fragrance. As it dries down, those kind of woody musk and musk molecules and a slight feeling of maybe synthetic ambers or something a little bit more substantial, should I say, than just musks and light woody musk molecules. But I feel in general that the kind of note list when you read it, it does sound like a very natural smelling fragrance based on the essential oils that are listed, so to speak. But it's not quite how it comes across to me. I feel like the accord in the mid and the dry down is more, like I say, synthetic based, and the naturals are more kind of nuanced and lighter touches around the edges of that. But the bulk of it feels a little bit more synthetic to me. Not that that's a bad thing, I'm not criticizing it, it's just something that I notice. If you're sensitive to certain synthetics, you might find you pick them up in this one. When the little clip he did on Instagram, he talks about the naturals that he used, and he highlighted the expensive natural materials. He talked about rose essential oil being used and iris root as two of the kind of naturals in here. And I struggled to get much of those. I think nuanced, kind of subtle, to be honest. There is definitely a floral-like accord in here, but I'm not sure I could pinpoint it as iris root or rose even. It's just a light sense of something clean and a little bit floral. So I'm not sure that the notes when I read it kind of reflect how I smell it, so to speak. I get, like I say, it feels more synthetic to me as it dries down. And not that that's a bad thing, a lot of people will like that kind of vibe. It didn't appeal to me too much in the dry down on a personal taste. The opening is lovely, I like the opening. I think the note of lemon blossom in here, as it's put, is maybe contributing to this kind of, like I say, laundry, kind of clean, fresh, kind of floral kind of feeling, which is very nice. I like the opening, it's very smooth, it's very clean, it's an enjoyable opening. But it does change a few times, and I found that vetiver comes through a later stage of the dry down and actually becomes quite noticeable. I get quite a bit of a earthy, kind of rooty, woody vetiver coming through. A little bit harsh, actually, a little bit kind of scratchy vetiver, with just the faintest hint of sweetness. There's not much. Tonka is listed in here, but there's not much. It's just a tiny little bit of relief of a tidgy weeny bit of sweetness in here. It's not particularly a sweet fragrance at all, but like I said, a little bit of it kind of relieves the kind of a little bit more harsh vetiver note that comes through in the base. So when I look at the note lists, I would say lemon, geranium, lemon blossom. I think you get a mixture of that in the opening. Like I say, fresh, clean, citrusy, floral, but very smooth, very rounded. I don't particularly pick out much rose or iris root personally. I'm sure they have their effects, but I'm not able to pull them out particularly individually, so to speak. In terms of performance for this, about 3 hours, I would say it's a skin scent, and about 6 hours, it's kind of capped at longevity for me, about 6 hours. You can smell it faintly as a skin scent a little bit longer, but generally speaking, you probably want to reapply at around the 6 hour mark, I would say. I would personally call this a unisex fragrance. I don't think it leans particularly either way. To me, it smells quite easy to wear and likable, kind of mass appealing, soapy, clean, fresh, uplifting with a little bit more of a woody kind of base. It's not particularly unique in the sense that there are multiple fragrances that have this kind of laundry-like, clean, fresh quality to it. It's not a million miles away from other things. On a personal taste basis, I'm quite glad I didn't buy a bottle. I'm happy just to smell it from a sample. I don't feel any urge to want to own a bottle for myself. But there's only 1,000 bottles. In terms of pricing, I think it was £210 sterling, which is quite expensive for an Andy Tower. But, you know, I think part of the expense of that is having to create he has to have a new bottle painted all in white and have a new cap made. So it's a whole new cap. You're paying basically for having the paint job done on the bottle that's new and different from his other ones. So that is an expense in itself to do it. And then also I think you're just paying more for the fact that it's limited. It's an anniversary celebrating a certain number of years from Andy's brand. And so you're paying for exclusivity, limited edition, signed. I don't mind it being a limited edition. I think it makes sense to celebrate an anniversary with a limited edition. and it's cool. You know, I don't mind. For me, maybe a little bit overpriced. When he talks about kind of the naturals being expensive, I don't smell a whole lot of them in a high quantity for me. For the price to be so much more than the other ones, I think probably the expense is a little bit more on just having the new presentation box made and the new bottle painted, and you know, those things aren't free, you have to pay for them. So that is an element, and again, you're charging for the artistic limited edition thing, so it's a little bit more exclusive. You know, probably that's why you might pay a bit more. But in general, if you like the way it smells, then you will be happy with the price, and if not, then not. So it's really down to the customer, I would say. But anyway, you can't buy a bottle anyway because it's all sold out. My favourite fragrance from Tower is probably O2 Le Air de Deux Marocain. This one I really enjoy wearing, or a little bit sweet on me. I mentioned it before, but the two kind of major comments I remember from feedback from this is when I got my hair cut, the barber told me that I smelled like I was dipped in honey, and when I was around my sister, she said I smelled of caramel or toffee. And so I think the sweet kind of the vanillic sweet ambery tones come out more on my skin with this one, but this is my favourite. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you've got a kind of a feedback of what Nexin smells like, and I'll see you soon with another video. Take care, everyone. Bye.
One time he disappeared for 2 or 3 days. When he came back, they asked him where he'd been, and he said, "Oh, just sailing."